In this lesson, we're gonna continue to talk about the selection in GIMP, and we're also gonna create some really simple photo montages. So we're gonna try to create a photo with a different background, and also we're gonna try to insert a photo inside like a mobile device or something in another photo. So I selected some pictures. I searched for picture in Google, and I found some right here to work with. So I'm gonna use this one here that you can find also, it's public domain, and you can find it in Wikimedia. So if you search for this, it's called Picture Play May Bosch, and it's CC0. So you can just open it from here, right click and save it in your computer. And then I've also searched for green screen. And as you can see here, I'm choosing images that have a defined background color because, well, we're gonna work with simple tools in this video. And I wanna show you how quick it is to get rid of a single color like this. And this is also why in TV shows and movies, they use green screen or a blue screen, because it's really easy to get rid of that and to change the background as we want. So I've chosen this one here, which is from Pexels. You can see here again all the information, and this is free to download, and it's hand holding a smartphone with a green screen. So here we can place whatever we want essentially, and we're going to try to place our image in there. So you just go here, free download, and you save it, and you can also donate to the author if you want, and that's it. So I'm gonna use also this one here, and I'm also gonna use this one from you will find it here, and this is the phone right here. So this is from PX here, and we can just click on download the original, free download the original, and that's it. You're gonna just save the folder, and that's it. So let's continue, and I'm gonna just close this. And you can see I've chosen this one here because it's not like a simple photo, it's more like a composition, an illustration. It's not actually a photo. We talk about photos in the previous video, so this could be like more like something that someone has scanned. So it's an old magazine which probably have been scanned, but you can see this is an art illustration, probably hand drawn, and also it has text, and so it's a complete layout. Then we can start to study a little bit. So we're gonna continue, and in the following lessons also we're gonna try to create our own compositions using different layers, not just one photo or just one graphic, but also, you know, a combination, a composition of different elements. So I'm just going to close this and let's start. I'm just going to go, and I'm also going to create some sort of frame using the image and the selection. So I'm going to start here by going to File and going to Open, and let's open the Picture Play cover magazine here. Okay, so now we can play a little bit with this one. Now, before we start, I just want to get real quick in the Edit and Preferences. So you can see that things have slightly changed over here, and you can see now all the tools available in the software. Now, how can you do that? And I think this is good for, you know, educational purposes. So for you to know and to look at once all of the tools that you have in GIMP. So to do this, we need to go to the interface, and we need to look for the toolbox page or panel. And you can see I've also activated here the show active brush, pattern, and gradient. And we're going to talk about this more later on. And then I also turned on the show active image, so I can see which images I'm working on. And if I go down here in the tools configuration, now you can see that everything is grouped into different sections. So you can see you have the move and the alignment inside the move group. So if you turn it off, turn this off, it will not be visible again. They're up there, so you can see. So to make sure that I see everything, I just turned on everything. So usually these are all turned on by default, but this last 5, I think, or like from the brightness, contrast, these are not turned on by default, so we can turn it on and then we can use them later on. You can also use the tool groups, which is going to make them package into a set of primary tools, and if you click and hold the left mouse, then you can access the others. So if you want to do this, you're gonna save some space. You can also show or hide the GIMP logo up there if you want to save some space, or you can just deselect this to see everything at once, which is probably better if you are starting to use GIMP to have a complete picture. So let's say OK, and let's start selecting parts of the image. So let's say that I only want to get the image inside this circle right here. I think the best one would be the ellipse select tool. And we already talked about the rectangle and the ellipse select tool in the previous video. So one thing we want to make sure of if we are like customizing this tool options panel. So if we play around here with the various parameters like we did in the previous video, we probably have now the previous settings. So if we want to reset this, we can go all the way down here and click on this little button. That's going to reset everything. So this is going to be the standard circle. And let's say that to make it easier, I can make this fixed so that it's going to be a perfect circle. And also I'm going to do the feather edge because I want the edge to be blurred, and then I want to expand from the center so it's easier to create a circle like this. Okay, now you remember you can always adjust here from the handles, but they're gonna keep the circle with a proportion of 1:1. So let's say that this is good, and so every time you can reset and customize these again. But you can also click on this little flag, and if you go here, you can save these tool presets. So just click here, and this is going to create a new preset that you can always recall. So if you go again back here, you can restore with the previous selection that we did, or you can edit the previous selection that we did and we saved. And we can also delete this preset, or we can reset the tool options or reset all tool options. So if you reset again, you're going to start all over. Now, there are other ways we can save the selection that I think that are more effective than saving this. Now, this is only saving what you are setting in here. It's not saving the selection as it is. So it could be not so useful sometimes. And then you can, again, add the tab, but we already talked about this. You can click and drag, you can undock, or you can, let me just go here. You can lock tab to dock, you can detach, you can close, and so on. But we already talked about this. You can also move it to another display, by the way. So down here, again, you have the save preset tool, then you have the delete tool preset, and again, the restart that we saw previously. So we discovered that we have a lot of options here in the tool options panel. And also we have the move tool here. We have some options. So we can decide if we want to move the layer, which means moving the pixels here of this image around, or if we want to move the selection. So if we have again let's create again the circle selection and expand from the center. So I'm going to click and drag and hold the shift key if you want to maintain the proportion real quick. You can also adjust it with the handles, and if you hold the shift key again, you're gonna adjust it. And so you can also decide if we go to move the selection or to move the path. Now we didn't work with the path yet, but we're gonna work with these later. So we're gonna go back just to show you that you always have options also with the move tool. And here we also have a toggle holding the shift. So if we are working with guides here and this overrides one to the other, we can hold the shift key if you want to use the normal movement, pick a layer, or guide. So if we hold the shift key, it's going to hold the guide. It's going to move the selection, or we can do the other way. Or we can with the shift, we can move the active layer. So it's kind of like the other way. So if I hold shift, I move the guide. If I leave the shift, I'm gonna move the picture. So different ways we can do the same thing, but it's better to be aware of these different settings. So I'm gonna move this up, and now let me create a new document. So I'm gonna go to File, New. So this will be our own composition, and I will create an A4 with white background. So let me just come here. And so one thing we can do is just when we are selecting like this, we are selecting all the pixels that are inside this image. And even though this is a hand-drawn picture, if I zoom in, I can see the pixels, because remember, everything here then will be rasterized. So even if you scan this, or you drawn this, or you took a picture of this and you bring it in the computer into GIMP, this is going to be then converted into pixels. So everything I do when I copy is copy all the pixels inside. So you can do Control C, or you can right click and go to Edit and copy. Now, if you copy, you're copying only this layer. If you copy visible, you're gonna copy everything that is visible also, so in other layers. So I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna bring it here. And we already saw that we have some options. So we can paste, simply paste, or we can paste in place. We can also do paste into the selection. So it's going to, we need a selection first. So we're gonna do this later. And then we have also other options that we already saw. So let's just do paste in place. So it's gonna paste it in the same place determined by the X and the epsilon here that we have in this other composition. But this is like, it looks smaller in this page because the page is bigger. Okay, so we saw that we just copy and paste. Now, if I go back here and do Control X, this is gonna cut, and we already saw this. So if you, again, right click, edit, cut, it's gonna just get rid of those pixels and turn them into white pixels. Now, if you don't want that, you need to add an alpha channel. So if you go here on this image and right click on this layer, you can add an alpha channel. When you add the alpha channel to an image, then you are able to have a perfectly transparent background. So if I do again Control X, you can see now I don't have that white anymore, and I can place anything in here. So I can reuse perhaps this layout to do something else. So this is just to show you that you can either leave the white, or you can also leave the transparency and use it. Okay, so now that we have this one here, we still have the selection, and let's do another example. Let's do a rectangle. So I'm gonna create a rectangle right here. And so if I do with the right click again, edit, and do paste into selection, you can see that it's pasting it right here where the selection is. So it's kind of giving an instruction to be placed there. So then I can create a new layer, and that's it. That's gonna bring back the original image. But let's say that I wanna cut this also. So one quick way to do this is to invert the selection. So right click, select, and invert, and then press the delete key. So delete key on your keyboard will cut anything outside that selection. And so we have now two layers. Working with layers, it's easier because you can see I can just select this one here, move the layer around, so I don't need to reselect that. It's kind of in a different level, so it's easier to manipulate it. Here in the background, well, I would need to recut this because now this is part of that white background. So let me just continue here. I'm just gonna go back here and do again Control C, and go back here, Control V, and this time I'm not gonna anchor this, so I wanna create a new layer. So this is now easier to work with this one right here. And also one thing we can do before we actually confirm, let me just go back, Control Z. So when we still are in the selection, I can still move the selection around. And again, this is also really handy. I'm just gonna go back again, because there are other things we can do before we copy and we paste this selection right here. So when we're still selecting, if we go in the select menu, again from here or with the right click, which I think it's quicker, We can feather, we can sharpen the selection. We already saw this. We can shrink or we can grow by the pixels. So we can still edit that selection. And then we have border. I think this is also pretty interesting. So if I do border, and let's create a 30 pixel border. You can also choose different border styles. So let's make it hard. And let's do OK. So you can see it's creating an actual circle. So it's a white circle with a black circle inside. And so how we can use this? Well, we can use this in many different ways. So we can also copy this, Control C. And again, let's bring it in here. Let's do the edit and paste in place. So it's going to be paste in the same exact position. But this time I want to do something else, something that we already saw also before. We can go to edit and fill this with the color. So we can create a picture frame, or we can fill it with a background color, foreground color, or with a pattern. Now we're going to talk about patterns later, but you can see it's like more complex than a simple color. And again, this could be another layer. So I can create another layer so that I can move it around separately. So you can see you have really many options here when you do this operation. Now, if you want to refill this, well, you can create another circle, or another way to do this is to go to the select and do the remove holes. So remove holes will remove any hole inside a selection. So this, you can see this is a circular selection. If I add, let's say here, another circle inside using, well, let me reset, and I'm going to use the subtract. So this is going to click, drag. You can see it's subtracting, but now it's not perfectly inside. So this is not a hole. To be a hole, it needs to be perfectly inside like this. So if I want to remove this hole, once the selection is done, I can go to select and go to remove holes. So it's going to remove it. And this is now, again, a perfect closed shape. It's not actually a perfect circle because it's missing a piece right here, but it's a closed shape. This is what we wanted to do. So we can work with borders like this, but we also have some other options. If we go again back here to edit, let's go all the way down here. And you can also copy and paste directly as a new layer using this, or as a new layer in place, or as a totally new image. But we already saw this in another video before, so you can see those options. And let's go all the way down. So if we do fill selection outline, let's do it. Okay, so you can see, again, we can choose a solid color or a pattern. Let's fill. Okay, so you can see it's filling again the selection. Or we can do the fill path, but we don't have a path, so we're gonna talk about this later. And we can do stroke selection and also stroke path. So we're gonna talk about paths later. So let's go to stroke selection. Now this is a little bit more complex. We can either choose a solid color again or a pattern. Always leave anti-aliasing on. And then we can choose again a line width and also a line style. But let's first select a line width and let's do OK. Let's see what's happened. There you go. So we are again creating a stroke or another circle around our selection, but we didn't need to create a double line. This is just creating a visible path around that selection. Let me just go back. And I've already used this, so I'm going to reset so that it's like by default. It's really thin. So again, let's go back. Let's make it a little bit thicker. Let's make like 40 pixels. There you go. Now it's pretty visible. Again, Control Z, go back, and let's do some other example. I can use a pattern again. Now remember, the pattern is this one that is right here. We can change that, but we're gonna talk about patterns later. So let's just use the defaults. Again, stroke selection. So we either use solid color pattern, or we can use the stroke with the paint tool. So if we have a particular paint brush or some other tool, we can stroke with that. So we can stroke, and there you go. Now you can see this is a little blurred because well, this is also the active brush right here. You can see it's a little blurred on the edge, and we also have other brushes we can use. So we're gonna talk about brushes later, but just keep in mind that you can work with all these different things when you're stroking out, creating a stroke using a selection. Now I'm gonna jump back because and you can also emulate brush dynamics, by the way. So let me just go back here to the stroke line and solid color, which is this one here. So it's the active foreground color. So let's change it into something else. Okay, just to do something different. And I'm gonna change also the width. Let's make it 30. And here we can also define another line style. So you have different cup styles. This is when the line is open. Now, in this case, we have a perfectly closed shape and a perfectly closed selection. So this won't make any difference. So you can choose if you want to cut straight, if you want to do a rounded cut, or a square cut when you have open lines, not closed shapes like this. When you have closed shapes, you can use different joint styles: meter, round, and bevel. But this time we're using a circle, so we won't see that either. So other thing we can do is meter limit. We can change this limit. Always see here what's happening then when you're finished. And we can also apply a dash pattern. So this is now a solid line, but we can change this into a dash line or dots or dash and dot. And we can also customize this by clicking in this little scheme right here. So we can do something customized if you want. So you can see it's custom. So let's do like this one, steeples, and let's stroke. So you can see now it's a little bit different. And this like joined together because they are really big. So let's do something else in here. So let me just create a new selection over here just to show you. So we can use also an empty space to create our effects. So edit and stroke selection. And let's make this a little smaller, like 10. Line style. Now we can use this bevel and use like the meter a little bit, and let's stroke. So you can see this is the bevel right here, and they still pretty close together. So let's make this perhaps a little bigger so we can see it. So let's again stroke selection, line style, and let's change this to bevel. Let's increase this also a little bit, and I want to leave well, let's make something more visible like this, and let's stroke again. Now it's not so visible because the selection it's overriding it. So let's right click, select, and none. So now we can see the dashed line there. So it's just a matter of how you set up in order to see it. And now this went directly into the layer that we worked on, which was the background layer. So it's part of the background. Okay, so we still have other selection tools here, but we're gonna explore them later. So I'm just gonna go to File, Open, and now we're gonna make the green screen example. So I'm gonna use this one here and this one here. So I can also hold Control and select both images and do Open. So they're gonna be open into two different windows. So how do I bring my image in here? Now, first of all, again, we need to have an alpha channel. So right click on the layer and add the alpha channel. And then we can quickly use the select by color. So go to select by color, which we already saw, and make sure that everything is nice and you select the overall font in there. You can also try here with the select and remove holes. There you go. So we have a nice and selection. We can zoom in, we can see there is still a little bit of green screen area in there, so we can right click, select, and try to grow this selection. And you can definitely see the number of pixels that are in there. Probably there are like 20 pixels, so let's do 20. There you go. And we can also feather this a little bit so that it's not so sharp. So we can go to the feather, and let's make something pretty small. Let's make like 8 pixels feather. Okay, so now we are ready to remove this. So we can just delete. So delete. Now let's insert the picture inside here. So I'm gonna take the whole picture now. So I don't need the selection here. So right click and none. So I'm gonna take everything, do Control C, and then come here and do Control V. And there you go. Now you can see that now it's a floating selection. So until it's a floating selection, I can work a little bit with this. I can move it around. But if I go here in the Unify Transform tool, another interesting tool, we can now transform this image. So if you click on the corners here, you can also distort and create some sort of perspective distortion to make it look actually in there. So you can do this with a mobile phone, but you can do it also with other devices. So make sure it's just, the correct perspective. So you can click on these grips and everything does a different job. So you can see this one scales everything, this one skew, and also this one here. So when you think you're ready, just press transform, and this is gonna transform the image. And then let's create a new layer. This is important because we need 2 layers to have a photo montage or a photo insertion. So I'm gonna click now this one here below, and there you go. So we have a nice picture inside the phone. Now, the other way is the other way. So we're gonna have a different background with the one thing on the foreground. And again, it's really easy because it's just a matter of selecting the color. So again, select by color, click here, and you can see this is just selecting right away. Again, let's zoom in. See, there is a little bit of green screen. So again, let's go to select and grow a little bit here like this. Oh, well, 20 is too much. So let's go back, select, grow, and you can see these are just few pixels. It's like 2 or 3 pixels. Okay, and then you can feather a little bit. So we're gonna use this one here again, the feather, now that we know how it works. So let's make this little just 2. Okay, and now if I press delete, you can see I have a white background. So this is not good if I want to use this to do a Photomontage. So I'm gonna right click, alpha channel, and then delete. Okay, now it's fine. And we already are selecting this. Well, we are actually selecting the outside. So if we right click and do edit and select and do invert, now we are selecting the bird. You can see it from here. This is really important. So we can now Control C, copy it, and bring it in our composition. Control V. There it is. It's pretty small because the actual original image was really, really small. Now I create a new layer, but you can see it's not visible. So be careful the order of the layers, so how they are stacked on top of the others. To create a new layer, remember to do Control Shift N, by the way, when you have a floating selection. So you can see that we have a hole in here. So if I place this one here, it's not going to be visible but here, but it's only going to be visible if I move it in this position. Sorry. Okay, just there you go. So make sure everything again it's in the correct order. So this will be all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe to the channel to stay updated. And if you want to support us, if you want to thank us, you can join the channel as a supporter. So this is going to help us to make more videos, video courses, and so on. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next.